All right, so we did, did the first problem on the classwork. And now the second one deals with these phase shifts. All right, then it says, use the graphing tool to graph the function. All right, so we open up the graphing tool in Math Excel. And you're going to graph your function. And when you're done graphing it, you should end up with something that looks like this blue graph right here. The red graph you don't have. That's the original. Does anybody need help with how to use the graphing tool? Yes? Okay. All right, give me a second. I'm going to load it up. So, Jesus was one. Amplitude is 1. Phase shift is pi over 4. Okay, now we're ready to graph. Okay, so you click on your graphing tool. This is a sine graph. So I'm going to choose this curve and just click on the origin and it graphs it. Okay, the amplitude's 1, period's 2 pi. It's not getting slid up or down. It's just getting slid sideways. And in my case, it was positive pi over 4. Type that in. So just pi, and then divided by 4. Okay, and then it shifts it, and there's your graph. Okay, now the next question starts asking you about the 5 basic points of a fundamental cycle of sine are transformed to 5 points on the graph of a given function. Point 0, 0 transforms to the point blank. All right. So what this is asking you to figure out is, if you were looking at my graph right here, the red graph is the original. Okay, so on the original, there's my original 0, 0. Okay, my graph slid pi units, and in this case, left. So if I were to type that in, it would be negative pi. All right, so this is going to slide pi units. Well, pi on this graph is 2 blocks. 1 block, 2 blocks. So if this thing moves to the left, pi units, on the blue, in my case, the new one is going to be negative pi 0. Now, if you do it on Desmos, it'll tell you those points. That's why I wanted to show you. Okay, so depending on if you have sine or cosine, open up your Desmos graph. All right, mine are sines, so I'm going to unclick the cosine graphs so I don't get confused. And I'm going to click the 2 sine graphs. There's my original sign, and then this is going to be the new one. All right, amplitude is 1. The frequency is 1. Now I change C to whatever my slide was. My slide was pi. Okay, so I'm going to write C as pi. So I'm going to change this to just pi. Okay, the D value, 0. Okay. All right, so the first question asked you where'd 0, 0 move. So take your cursor and click on the first point that you're asked about. In my case, it's 0, 0. And if you double click on it, the coordinates will stay there. Okay, now I know that my point moved to the left pi units. So it ended up right here. There's my second point. So if I was answering this on Math Excel, I know that 0, 0 would go to negative pi 0. Okay, does anybody need help with that part on theirs? Okay, so I'm gonna, let's see, let's type in your equation. Okay, what's your equation?
Y equals sin x plus
Pi over 3. So I'm going to change this to pi divided by 3. Okay. All right. So here's 0, 0. Now, which way did yours move? Did it go pi over 3 to the right or left? Okay. Let's see. And you had, make sure I got this. 1, 1, pi over 3. To the, was your equation plus?
What?
It's plus pi over 3? So this is then going to be negative. Okay. All right, so just look at this drawing here. Here's 0, 0. Which way does it move? Left until it moves pi over 3, right to there. So that's my new point. Okay, so now you do the same thing for the next point here. Okay, the next point is pi over 2, 1. So if we look at, I made this earlier. Okay, here's pi over 2 on the red graph. And on my graph, the slide was x minus pi. So that means it moved to the right pi units. So the coordinates of this point would be 3 pi over 2, 1. So if you click on your Desmos graph, okay, let's say we were doing Jessica's right here. What's the next point you have to transfer on yours? Yeah, the next question. Okay, so I'm going to go to pi over 2. And if I zoom in and zoom out, I can see where there's pi over 2. Okay, there's the original, pi over 2, 1. Now this point moved. I'm going to find the same place over here because it moved to the left. There's the new point. So pi over 2 moved to pi over 6. Now, we're not doing it using any arithmetic. We're just looking at the drawing. Okay? If you were doing the arithmetic on this, show you how the math works, because you can do all these without, you can do all of them without having to use any graphing software. Okay. All right. So on yours, here's the picture. All right. So you were given this point, pi over 2, comma 1, and you want to slide it pi over 3 left, correct?
Yes.
All right, so the y coordinate won't change. And to get that, I'm going to subtract pi over 3. So this is how you would do it without using Desmos. Okay, get a common denominator, 6. And then this guy would have to get multiplied by 3 pi. This guy would have to get multiplied by 2 pi. So altogether, it's 6 pi over 6. So all of these questions, once you know how you're going to be sliding, so mine, I was adding pi. So what I would do to answer all of these, okay, if I didn't want to have to go back and forth between Desmos and everything, these are the points that it's asking me to do. Okay, I'm going to take each one of these and I am going to add, or which way am I moving? I'm sorry, I messed mine up here. I'm sliding to the right. So here are my points. If I'm sliding to the right, I'm going to add pi to each one of these. That, I'm going to add pi. Take the next one, add pi. Take this one, add pi. Okay, take this one, add pi. So that one would be 3 pi. Okay, how do you add pi to that? 3 pi over 2 plus pi. Common denominator, 2. It's got to get multiplied by 2. This one's going to be 5 pi over 2. Okay, now I got to add pi to pi over 2. So that one's going to be 3 pi over 2. Those are all my new points. So when we do the next one, I want you to do it on a sheet of paper instead of using Desmos to do it. Okay, so just get out a scrap piece of paper. Yeah, just get out a sheet of paper. And let's try it by hand. Once you go open up your next question, and we're going to try this one just doing it by hand. So you're not clicking back and forth and all that business. All right, so start on question, I think this is question 3. Answer your amplitude, answer your phase shift, and graph it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write down the points that you need to transform. Okay? So let's see. My amplitude is 1. My phase shift is pi over 3. Then I'm going to graph it. And we're going to do this without having to rely on Desmos. Okay, if you're dealing with a sine graph, then you're going to write down 0, 0, pi over 2, 1, pi, 0, then 3 pi over 2, 0, no, 3 pi over 2 negative. Your last point, 2 pi. If your graph is a cosine, you're writing down these 5 points. So depending on what your number 3 looks like, you're going to write down these 5 points or these 5 points. All right, now look at how you're sliding it. And you're either going to add or subtract that number from each one of these x coordinates, depending on what graph you have. So mine's a cosine graph. So I'm going to be dealing with these guys. And each one of those, I'm going to add pi over 3 to it. That's my phase shift. Right? So the y coordinate's not going to change. So the first one is going to be 0 plus pi over 3. Okay, my next one, for me, would be pi over 2 plus 3 pi plus 2 pi. That guy's going to be 5 pi over 6. And I just do that to each term. Okay, pi. Add pi over 4 pi, add pi over 3. That one's 11 pi over 6. And the values. Does anybody need help with theirs numbers? Yeah. Pardon me? Which part? Okay. The what? Okay. How about on this one? This is number 3. Does anybody need help with how to add and subtract? Don't be shy. Okay. Now, the next one isn't any harder, except you're just adding to the X's and the Y's. All right, so when you go to graph this, our amplitude's 1. My phase shift would be negative pi over 3. So I'm going to be subtracting pi over 3. Okay, so now you graph that. Question 4, amplitude. My phase shift pi over 3. Now, when you graph this, don't forget there's a vertical shift on it. So it's a cosine. And I'm going to indicate the horizontal shift, vertical. Oh, no. Yeah. So horizontal shift is pi over 3. And the vertical shift was mine 1. Oh, 3. 3. Okay, check that. All right, now I got to move all those points again. Okay, so mine was a cosine, so I'm moving this set of points, these right here. Okay, and for my equation that I've got drawn up, mine was plus pi over 3 plus 1. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to subtract pi over 3 from the x's. And then I'm going to add 1 to the y's. And Those are going to be my new points. These are my y coordinates. And now I got to subtract pi over 2 from all these, or pi over 3. Let's see. Pi over 2 minus pi. Last one. All right, does anybody need help with theirs? The math, adding and subtracting? Don't be shy, guys, because you'll see this question again when we go to test on this. Yes. Okay, which one is it? On the classwork? I know, the Math Excel classwork.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, what's your equation? Okay, what's this equation on to for you? X minus pi?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so cosine, but yours is x minus pi. And what part, what are you moving? What point? Okay, so in this problem, it tells you which point you're moving, like 0, 0, pi over 2, and what's the y coordinate? 0. All right, so this means slide pi to the right. So that means you're going to add pi to the x coordinates. All right? So you got to be able to do pi over 2 plus pi. Excuse me. Okay, so pi over 2 plus pi. Least common denominator, pardon me, 2. This would be pi plus 2 pi. So that's 3 pi over 2. Okay, anybody else?